Let's look at a modern interpretation of John Dewey's cycle of reflection. Nowadays we can think of this process as a process of inquiry, given the fact that we understand that the process of reflection is a process of the teacher inquiring into their own practice. And we can see this diagrammatically. Here we can see that Dewey's model is put into a 5-stage cyclical process, very simply identifying a process where the reflective practitioner is inquiring into their practice and developing meaning and professionality as they reflect. Perhaps the starting point is to ask a question about practice, asking what could be improved, asking what needs to change in order for things to improve. And through this then, investigating in some sort of detail how to make those improvements, and investigating in order to understand the components of those change needs. From this, the reflective practitioner creates a new approach to teaching, a new technique to try out, and puts this into practice in order to make the reflective process meaningful for themselves, and then to discuss with others the outcomes of that action that they've engaged with helps the reflection process, because it's from this deep level of reflection that the practitioner can ask further questions and so engage in this continuous cycle. And so what we think about in terms of this cycle is that there is definitely problem identification and problem analysis, and from this labeling of problems, the reflective practitioner is seeking solutions. What we're talking about here in terms of a process of inquiry is that the solutions are based on certain criteria. Developing understanding for us as reflective practitioners helps us identify particular standards, particular criteria that we can use to assess the change process. And from this addition of criteria becomes new implementations in the classroom, which are improvements on what has been gone before. And so for problem identification, it's good to think about particular questions we can ask. What is the specific problem, for example, and what are the words, the labels that we'd use to define that particular problem? It's important for this process that Dewey is describing, this process of rationality, that we're constantly questioning and trying to provide names to these problems so that we can be much more analytical about them. Problem analysis includes questions about trying to understand the nature of the problem and how the problem actually occurred in the first place. This takes the reflective practitioner to an additional step of rationality, where the detail is provided, which can lead then to the next phase of action. Which is understanding the problems that can get in the way, and understanding how to find solutions to overcoming those problems to new change actions. Problem analysis also gets us to think about what are the effects, what are the outcomes of the change actions that we're implementing in the classroom, and what these change actions are both in the short term and also in the long term. And then when we're looking for solutions, when we're selecting the methods that we're trying in order to get rid of the problems, we're thinking about not only the usual solutions that we can take, but also trying to be creative about new solutions that may actually be relevant. And there can be different processes that the reflective practitioner can engage with in order to be creative and innovative about the solutions. And using criteria in relation to the solutions actually helps us judge the extent to which we've achieved the solution in relation to the problem. And the criteria come from our developing experience over time, standards that we have for ourselves and standards which can be set externally by others on our practice. And we're looking at not only the change actions, but also the negative consequences of what those change actions can bring. So it's, as a rational process, it tries to be very balanced, looking at both the positive and the negative components as a combination solution to the issues that we've identified.